I'm going to quit wasting all of your precious times, and I'm going to hand it over to Boaz from Orca. Orca is the easiest, fastest, most user-friendly cryptocurrency exchange on the Solana blockchain. He'll be talking about the rise of the Apex AMM. And with that, let's give it up for Boaz.
Hello, folks. How are we doing this morning? That was a question, folks. How are we doing this morning? Better, better. Why do I get the impression that some of you were drinking alcohol last night? Or perhaps just staring at the markets for the past 12 hours and not sleeping, which is perfectly understandable. I don't blame you for doing either. However, I'm here to give you the good news. There's a lot of fear at the minute. There's a lot of doom and gloom in the crypto space especially, and indeed in the broader world. But there are good things out there. My name is Boaz Shoshan. I'm a member of the Orca team. And this is just a little chat about what's been going on in the depths of DeFi. So without further ado, let's get into it. Yeah, I thought we'd start off on a rather light-hearted tone, as of course, a lot of you guys at BlockDown 2022 are very much into your NFTs. And this is an example of one of our Orcanauts. We did an NFT collection late last year, and this was done mostly for charity, so we didn't actually take any of the mint revenue from it. So we raised $1.2 million. There were 10,000 of these Orcanauts that were released into the wild, all of them unique and different. And yeah, then we gave a quarter of the mint revenue to the artist and 3/4 to a charity, which we'll come to in a little bit. I picked this one as I think the pirate hat accessory is the best of all of the Orcanaut accessories. And I think the expression very much matches what a lot of people probably look like when they're looking at the crypto markets at the minute, right? You got that sort of flat expression, maybe somewhat hopeful. You could really map whatever you wanted onto it. But yeah, quick question before we get started, a little light-hearted note. Does anyone know who wrote this? The Nautilus was piercing the water with its sharp spur after having accomplished nearly 10,000 leagues in 3 months and a half, a distance greater than the great circle of the Earth. Where were we going now, and what was reserved for the future? Anybody? Do you know who wrote that by any chance? No guesses? Well, don't worry if you don't. The reason I picked this quote was because I actually use the handle Nautilus on our Discord. We all have sort of nautical-themed nicknames. And I thought this line, where were we going now and what was reserved for the future, was a very good way of summing up this little talk, because of course that is the whole point. Now, I was mentioning that 75% of the mint revenue, I think it was $967,000 from our NFT launch, went to charity. This went to Aflatoon International. They are a charity that focuses on literacy for children in emerging economies, and with a specific slant on financial literacy. So we thought we'd get maybe a bit of DeFi in there, and we'd fund a big curriculum which has a focus on that. So it's a very ambitious project. Will hopefully impact tens of thousands of kids around the developing world. But of course, these things take a lot of time. But that's the thing in crypto. Everyone expects things to happen really, really quickly. They're not always expecting, they're not actually looking to the future when you're thinking of years into the 2020s as to what the impact will be. And I think if you zoom out a little bit more, you'll find that there are plenty of things in crypto right now which look very, very optimistic without actually having to pay attention to too much of the price action. Now, just a quick introduction for anybody who is not familiar. Orca is the DEX for people, not programs. So it's a decentralized exchange that you can use to swap Solana native or Solana wrapped assets inside the Solana ecosystem without having to rely on a centralized counterparty. Lots of other things we do, but it is very, very user-friendly, hence the tagline. It shows a little GIF of what it's like to swap on Orca. My initial introduction to Orca was late last year when the Orca logo showed up on my Twitter feed, and I thought, wow, that's a really nice logo. I'll learn a little more about that. And I went on to the decentralized exchange, and it was so easy to make a swap, and it was so fun to make a swap. I thought, I've got to get involved in this. I want to be on their side. And that's only a little bit of what we do. There is, of course, the broader team. You will be very disappointed to hear, the dumbest member of the Orca team. I'm only about half as smart as anyone else on there. I think the only advantage I have over any of them is maybe being taller than them. So maybe if there was a punch-up or something, I'd maybe come out on top. But even then, a lot of them study martial arts and that, so I'd probably be screwed. These are two founders. We've got Yutaro Mori and Grace Ori Kwan. And these are two co-founders, as I say, very good pedigree when it comes to tech and design. Yutaro is the architect of the decentralized exchange and the AMM, really big on engineering, and Ori is the sort of chief voice of the Orca brand and the main designer behind the UX, the user experience. And meanwhile, we have a team of very talented engineers and marketing and operations folks from all manner of big tech companies who've defied the herd and gone into DeFi. Now, as I've said, it is a decentralized exchange. I thought we could just go over a few of the things that there are to be happy about when it comes to crypto. So what you're looking at here, this is the percentage of daily active users inside the Solana ecosystem. So this is taking a look at all the other decentralized exchanges and then just showing you how many of them are occupying, the majority of those users. This is something that's obviously makes us very happy because there are so many daily active users who are coming to Orca, which is the big yellow wave, which suits our nautical theme, I think, somewhat. This is, if we go a little more into the figures, this thin yellow line is very thin, I apologize. But this is looking at the actual absolute number of these daily active users. So we recently crested 130,000 daily active users on Orca. And as you can see, relative to some of the other exchanges, this is quite something of an outperformance. This is something we're very proud of. And the question is, why is it they're coming to Orca? Why are they not going to some of the other decentralized exchanges? This is kind of a blend of the previous two charts. So you've got the number of users for Orca in yellow again, and then the others with the other decentralized exchanges in different colors up top. Again, we got that over 100,000 daily active users, which we're very proud of. So what is it? Why are they actually coming to Orca in the first place? So of course we have the very, very good UI, which I think is unparalleled for decentralized exchanges. But at the same time, user experience is not all actually about the everyday user, the retail user, as it would commonly be described. The users actually includes the developers who may then adopt your product to use it for something else. This is a member of the user community who are not often acknowledged, and if you don't focus on them, you'll actually lose out, because integrating with other applications in the Web3 ecosystem has a huge payoff, as we're seeing here. So a big part of this big takeoff here is our recent integration with the lifestyle app on Web3 called StepN. And this is really, really big over in Asia, really big audience in Japan, though originally developed in China, and it's very popular in other places too. Maybe it'll come here, we'll find out. It'll be very interesting if it does, and it'll be really good if it does, because it'll be good for the DeFi ecosystem in general. But a lot of this new user base is coming from StepN, and if you're using StepN, you wouldn't actually know necessarily that you're using Orca. So while we have this great user interface, in the future, the great growth in Orca may be from users who don't actually know that they're using Orca, but they're just using another Web3 lifestyle app or another Web3 app in general, and as a result, they're just making swaps through Orca that way instead. And this is one part which I think is very much key. You need to make sure that your exchange, your DEX, has a really good SDK that's very stable, that people really like to use. And that is one of the reasons why StepN integrated with us, and we're very proud of that. We've also integrated with Parcel, who over in the States are doing some very interesting, creating a very interesting product when it comes to real estate and tokenizing real estate to some degree. So that's a couple of the integrations we've got now. We're looking to build that out a lot more in the future with something called our Builders program, which is is outside the scope of this discussion. But when it comes to Solana, we are taking the whale share, as it were, for the Solana dexes. And, oh yeah, I thought I'd expand on this a little bit. So some people might say, all right, 130,000 daily active users, how are you actually measuring that? Are those real users in the first place? So we are using this as a relatively loose term. When I'm talking about 130,000, we're talking about unique Solana addresses that are making at least one successful transaction through Orca every day. And why I'm still using that definition is because you can still see, relative to the other exchanges, that Orca is still dominating most of it. So while you do get folks who use numerous wallets, and you get arbitrageurs who use hundreds of different wallets, there is still a quite obvious trend here when it comes to Orca. And if we actually strip out the arbitrage wallets, which we've done here, and it is quite a rough adjustment we've made here. We've effectively just removed all wallets that make 20 or less transactions per day. And there are plenty of real people, day traders, who would make more than 20 transactions a day. Sorry, I'll clarify that. We've stripped out all people who make more than 20, not less than 20. While that would strip out a lot of real-life people who aren't bots and who aren't arbitrageurs, we've done this anyway just to kind of make a point here. And you can still see that we're well over 100,000 users. So it is a rough guesstimation. This is more of an art rather than a science. But we're still very proud of our user growth, and you can still see very clearly that there are people who really, really like using Orca relative to other decentralized exchanges. Now, I thought I'd dwell on this as well, because there's much more to Orca than simply being a decentralized exchange. Our co-founders, Ori and Yutaro, do feel very strongly in the power of effective altruism. And by that I mean actually making an impact on the real world. There's a lot of greenwashing you will find in TradFi today, and you get it a bit in crypto as well, where folks make, they say a lot of things about, oh, well, we'll do our bit for the environment, things like that. But we wanted to demonstrate that this is actually possible at the protocol level. So all of the fees that we earn through the Orca DEX, so it's 0.3% if you're making a swap, 20% of those fees earned automatically go to the Orca Impact Fund, which is effectively a fifth of our total treasury. So this is a live wallet that you can watch. Sorry, well, it's not a live interface that you're seeing right now, but this is a wallet anybody can track. Forgive this massive dip here in March. That's an API error. It didn't suddenly drain and regain itself. But in terms of the Impact Fund, it's a fifth of our treasury wallet. And at the minute, our treasury is made up of LP tokens, so liquidity provision, which isn't the most stable, as many people may realize, because it's quite volatile. So we will be swapping that into USDC in the near future. But our first ever community decision was on which charity we would actually make our first donation from the Impact Fund for. And our community chose Ocean Conservancy, which is doing a lot of work. They're based in Washington, but they do a lot of work around the world when it comes to cleaning up the oceans. And when you're talking about advocacy, when it comes to the politics of it, and at the same time doing some real life, actually clearing beaches and draining trash from the ocean. Now, we will be making further contributions from this, and we'll be detailing that a lot more in the near future. We're working with Ocean Conservancy quite closely, and we'll be updating our community on what they're doing with the money that we then give them in the future. Right. Now, another aspect of this. Why is it that people are liking Orca? Why are we seeing success in the decentralized exchange space when it comes to Solana? Big part of this is whirlpools. So whirlpools are concentrated liquidity pools. So this is what our market makers can provide liquidity on Orca. And in doing so, they can set specific price ranges. And this leads to big gains when it comes to capital efficiency. So capital efficiency, if we're talking about, say, for example, if you were to provide liquidity in the Solana USDC concentrated liquidity pool, so say you put your price range was $41 to $70, if you are actually correct and the Orca and the Solana and USDC price stays within that range, you would make 7.98 times more money, more yield from fees, and indeed from rewards than you would if you were using one of our standard pools. And that's just at the lower end of the price ranges. And you can go much more narrow. It's an open system that anybody can tailor to their own speculative desires, as it were, because it does have risk, of course. Concentrated liquidity pools do have the risk of concentrated and permanent loss. So it places a lot more of the onus on the liquidity provider themselves to be very shrewd, very smart with what they're doing, and we think it'll make them much more capital disciplined in the future, which will then lead to more efficient markets. The reason why we've done whirlpools in the first place was because we wanted to make, in order to survive, in order for Solana to prosper, we need more efficient markets. And by introducing concentrated liquidity pools, you get more efficient prices with far less actual required liquidity. So not only do the liquidity providers earn a great deal more money if they get it right, and they get punished more if they get it wrong. But at the same time, because it creates much more liquidity available around the market price, it means that traders using our decentralized exchange will suffer from far less slippage, which of course is a big issue when you're talking about AMMs. Now, just as an addendum to that, for folks who don't quite understand what concentrated liquidity is, and indeed what automated market making does and how it works. Say, for example, if you are a liquidity provider, say you take $50 of USDC and $50 of Solana, and you put it into a standard constant product liquidity pool and this can be on any blockchain really, if you're just talking about a standard AMM, what you are actually doing is applying that liquidity all through the price curve. So any price from 0 to infinity, effectively, is now being supported in a tiny way by your capital that you have provided. With a concentrated liquidity pool, it's much more narrow, and as a result, much more liquidity is available around those prices, and that means that not only do the liquidity providers earn a lot more fees, but they also make more liquidity available to the market. Anyway, nobody did manage to guess the Jules Verne quote at the beginning, but I thought that was a pretty brief introduction to Orca, where it is at the moment, where we are going. My name is Boaz Shoshan, and I think that's all the time that we have for today. So if you do have any questions, do feel free just to hop on over. I shall be at the bar later on. I know a lot of the attendees have been frequenting that. And yeah, that is all for the minute. There is, of course, the Orca token and Orca governance, which we could expand on, but I think my time's up for the minute. So I'll leave it there. But thank you very much, folks. My name is Boaz Shoshan, and I'll see you later.